Hello folks. Firstly, I think I need your patience today because this is going to be a bit of a rambly one, but it is a lore video, so you better be used to that by now. I've decided in these lore videos to basically go over things as I want to go through them. Rather than doing a Legion 1, 2, 3, 4, things like that, I'd like to just think about what tickles my fancy one week and cover that. That way I think you're getting better content, quite frankly, because I'm sitting here doing something that I want to do and that I was impassioned by, and I wrote about for a little while. The script took me a few hours, so if you like what I do, then please subscribe to the channel. The little box is down below to subscribe, and also click the notification bell, because if you don't, YouTube will never tell you that I am here, because I keep seeing that a lot of people who are watching my videos are not subscribed, and my subscribers are not being poked when I'm online, which is bit silly, but there you go. And also, if you like what I do, the Patreon's down below, all that fun stuff, and I will be streaming some Scum later, hopefully. I think I will be doing that though. I'll be looking around for bases and things like that as our Scum server for the channel kicks off and gets, more populated, which I'm really having fun with that right now. Before I do anything else, this is a story about Rabute Guilliman and how I came across him in the lore and how basically his coming into the lore changed certain aspects of my life in the hobby. I'm not kidding. Like it gets that in depth as we go along. So, without further ado, let's discuss in the lore Rabute Guilliman and why I think, in general, he's a bad influence and an idiot. And here's why. As the summer of 2017 swung around, I had been working for Games Workshop for some time, and, as you often do, had been hearing rumblings from the head office of something big on the horizon. Finally, one day, as spring was coming into the air, our manager pulled us aside at our usual, unpaid, mandatory, according to him, training on a Saturday morning before the store opened. Before I go anywhere else, Games Workshop expects you to be in the store 15 minutes early, 15 minutes to half an hour early to set up for your shift, right? That is an unpaid 15 minutes to half an hour every day. So you're working an extra couple of hours a week, essentially, and an extra probably 10 hours a month. Free labour. That is expected of you. It is in your contract that you sign. It is in fine print. It is not actually there right on top. I actually have my Games Workshop contract. It is there. They do expect you to turn up, and you can be sacked for not turning up at those specified times. Now, on a Saturday, my manager would egregiously say you need to be at the store 1 hour and a half before your actual day starts, for half an hour of setting up the store, and then for an hour of training. Only when I went to other people in other stores did I know that this does not happen at other stores at all, and this is just something that he liked to do to flex his muscles. So that's an extra hour that we could be spending in bed. Let's be honest, we are now in there being taught by this guy who, quite frankly, he can run a store in a massive city or a large city because it's going to get customers anyway. But I swear to you, that store would have done a lot better if he wasn't there at all. And this is the guy training you for an hour every single Saturday, free of charge. You're not paying any money for it. No, you're just turning up. Anyway, apart from this one time where something happened that I was actually quite interested by, he explained that Warhammer 40k was getting an 8th edition, and our next delivery had to be kept especially safe and especially secret. When it finally got there, our manager was off, and me and my colleague opened up the box to reveal 40 Dark Imperium box sets, and one labelled for store learning and training. This the manager had said to open and study, but not to take home. Well, I'm very, very, very sorry, but fuck that noise. So, me and my colleague played a 1,000 point game of Warhammer 40,000 after the store had closed to decide who would get the honour of taking the edition home to begin reading, whilst the other started building the display models from the case upstairs the next day. I won that game and headed home with the worst kept secret of our hobby in my backpack. I felt kind of giddy as I passed the regulars that I knew on the way home, knowing in my mind that they would go completely insane if I told them what I was carrying in my backpack. At this point, the new edition was still months away. No one had any real clue as to what the rules were going to be like, aside from a few small leaks. I got home and read after my shower for 4 hours, stopping to eat, and then finished reading the rules later on. I read on the lore how things were changing and what was happening in the setting. I'd made copious amounts of notes on the main points of what was coming, changing, and happening in the paradigm shift that was 8th edition. I sent this to my colleague and to a few close friends who were in the hobby before playing Dawn of War with my missus at the time and then heading to bed. I literally dreamed of Warhammer. It is the only time this has ever happened before or since. Yeah, it was that much in my brain at this point. Because yeah, at this point, I felt like I was at the centre of like a seismic shift in the hobby, and I was incredibly lucky to be there, to actually have it months before anyone else did, to read it and know what was coming. I actually started running games on days where my manager was off, and you'll find out he was off for a few weeks after this. I started running games of 8th edition using a cheat sheet that I'd made. So I wrote down a cheat sheet of the rules, the literal rules of the game, and gave them to people to play, to get used to the rules before they came out. So by the time our store actually, on release day, started selling these box sets, people were already playing the rules as if they'd been playing them for months, which the manager was quite confused by, but there you go. The next day, I headed in for what me and my co-worker called our office holiday. As in, we were working, but our manager was on a 2 weeks of annual leave. The store was buzzing for those 2 weeks, and we did great numbers financially. Our manager had a lot of complaints against him, so we told the customers if they wanted to protest him being there, as they kept telling us they wanted to, they should hold on to their money until he was off and then spend it in a big splurge to send a message. And they did. We were extremely busy, but each day at that Games Workshop without the manager there was kind of like Christmas. We looked forward to getting into work every day and threw ourselves into it completely. I had reservations though. I'd often sit in the store on my own and reread bits of the lore, as I had started counting something in my head through the rules. Rebute Guilliman had been mentioned 317 times to my counting, and that was just the lore. What is worse, a lot of the lore he was mentioned in was not his own. This is a theme that has progressed as the edition ticked by. Every time there was an event or faction that was interesting, Guilliman was there or mentioned. Each occasion the Imperium was fighting a desperate battle that could have real consequences for the setting, Guilliman arrived to save the day and re-establish the status quo. It was with a growing sense of coldness that I realised two things about Rebute Guilliman in the lore of modern 40k. Number one, he was an agent for the washing away of the grimdark elements of 40k, which we covered in a previous week's video. And number two, he was the main agent used by Corporate Games Workshop to ensure that the storyline of 40k did not progress without the input of their new hero along the lines they desired. This may sound like a conspiracy, but one, it's not. I know people, it's not, right? I know a lot of you won't believe that, but it's fine, I don't care. I know people, it's not. But think about it, just think about it analytically for a minute. I have touched on it before, but look at the art of Guilliman. Look at his artwork. If you can, go on Google right now, look at his artwork. I know a lot of you listen to me, which is why I don't put art on the screen, because it'll cause you to get your phone out whilst you're cooking and drop it into your fried chicken or whatever it is you're making. But do you notice the colours of his artwork? Bright, elegant, right? Have you noticed the lack of jagged angles, outlandish style, and frontier muck of the works of John Blanche and others like him? I certainly did at the time, and still do. Each time Guilliman arrives, he brings with him a multicoloured explosion of cartoon heroes, fighting to protect the Imperium that is good and right. And if you know anything about Warhammer 40,000 and what makes it cool, the Imperium is anything but good and right for the most part. And well, I have a problem with this. Mainly because, like a lot of you, I find the darker parts of 40k the more compelling. Rather than the Raven Guard, I would drift towards the Carcharodons. Rather than the Ultramarines, I was enthralled by the Minotaurs, Grey Knights, Kassakin, and other forces of the Imperium that are ostensibly loyal, but have an intrigue and a danger to them. The Ultramarines and Guilliman have no edge. And in 40k, if you have no edge, to me, you have no point existing in the setting at all. The word edgy is sometimes something that is banded around snidely these days, and for mostly good reasons. I think we forget, though, that there were settings and stories that could be described as having an edge that also had a remarkable depth of human feeling to them. One of those, in my opinion, was Warhammer 40,000. It is the flagship brand of Games Workshop that became the flagship because of its unapologetic, outrageous power levels, dark humour, grim tone, and themes of tragic irony, not despite of them. What do we have since 8th edition though, and why did I have this growing cold feeling about Guilliman and how things were going? We have Space Marine toys, literal toys. Go and look them up. Being marketed by Games Workshop in limited numbers as a test run, but you know if it's successful, that's going to be the next paradigm shift in the hobby. We're going to be seeing 40k toys and more kid-friendly content. I've got no problem with kid-friendly content on the surface level of things, but it should be in its own little space somewhere and kept there. 40k should be 40k. And if you want to bring little kids into it, maybe that's a good way of doing it, in making it a little bit more palatable to them in their own little corner. But for the vast majority of the setting, the 98% where the rest of us live, it should be grim, dark, and those kids, when they become of an age, 13, 14, 15, 16, when they can read this stuff, should be shocked by how dark and in-depth it is, right? Because that'll pull them in. The more Games Workshop goes into the more cartoony style, the more it goes into the Avenging Sun style of artwork and lore, the more you will lose these kids as they grow older and want edgier, quote-unquote, content. So what do we have? Space Marines and toys. We have a dumbing down of the lore into a grey sludge that dares not offend anybody. Have you noticed that the lore these days is just dry battle reports of whispers of things that might be happening? Usually something to do with Guilliman. Yeah, this is where we are. I'm not saying that there weren't things like that back in the setting in the past, but you always had that dark undertone of things being pushed on in the lore. Today, gone are the hard edges of the Necrons, who now have more personally than Dale fucking Winton. Cast off are the world-consuming threats of Tyranids, who seem to be annihilated by the other big bads of the setting as if they were swatting away flies. Lost are the grim aspects of the Imperial Guard, yes, that is what they are called, where they are tread beneath the tracks of huge wars in tragic but heroic ways. Instead, now, all we hear about them is that a lot of them are actually female, don't you know, and that they can all stand amongst the champions of humanity. No, they can't. They're just random dickheads like me and you in this setting. They are brave because they are cannon fodder, and they know it, and they fight anyway. That's why they're brave, that's why they're tragic, that's why they're grimdark. Not because they stand with the big boys of the setting, toe to toe. Since 8th edition for me, 40k has started to lose its mystery and sense of stakes, its purpose. It has lent away from being a coherent narrative that generally stays static, which is a bad thing, to be fair, to being a setting in constant flux, with very little coherency, which is only ever in flux whenever Guilliman is on screen, for the most part. I'm going to prove that to you a little bit, or at least give you a point to think about. Can I ask you something, dear listener? Have you ever heard of the Terminus Decree? A lot of people seem to think, as the law states, that this is a decree that the Grey Knights have. It is a mandate to kill the Emperor's mortal body. Yes, that is what it is hinted at doing. That's what it does. It is something that destroys the Emperor's mortal body. I am about to tell you what will happen with that decree. Nothing. Nothing, unless Guilliman is there to either take it from the Grey Knights and do it himself, or stop them from doing it entirely. The big movers and shakers of the law cannot move or shake without Guilliman being there. Imagine being a fan of Batman, and I've used this example before, but imagine being a fan of Batman, but in every single Batman comic or movie, Superman turns up to solve his problems for him, because they do live in the same universe. So imagine Superman turns up in every single Batman comic or movie and solves the problems for him, pats him on the head and leaves. That's Tribute Guilliman in modern day 40k. That's how sick most people are of the sight of this guy. Even other major Astartes factions, like the Blood Angels, seemingly are beholden to Guilliman. Remember, in the Shield of Baal campaign, where we were all convinced that Sanguinius was coming back in soul form, that he would possess Dante or something similar like that in a way to keep him alive? Remember all the hints that Games Workshop dropped to that effect as we built up to the campaign? Yeah, I remember the crushed feeling I had when I tossed out my plans for a Blood Angel successor army and swapped it out for Dark Angels. Why? Because at the 11th hour, just when I was convinced Sanguinius was coming back, I turned the page. And Guilliman was there again, arriving with Primaris Marines that I didn't care about to save the day yet again. To take the spotlight away from somebody I actually wanted to read about yet again. To castrate what other cool parts of the Blood Angels lore they had by giving them Marines that were seemingly immune to the Red Thirst and Black Rage. I closed the book, went to my shopping cart, and deleted the Blood Angels in the basket. Now, since then, the Primaris have gone on to exhibit both Blood Angels' curses if they share the blood of Sanguinius. But that makes this worse, not better. It shows that Games Workshop knew what they were doing all along, that this wasn't a mistake of the lore. They knew what they were doing. They knew that they were castrating the Blood Angels, and they tried to get away with it. The original plan, as you can see, was to have Guilliman save, quote-unquote, the Blood Angels from their curse, just like he wipes away every other thing in the setting that threatens to become more grimdark. The backlash to the end of the Shield of Baal was real. I experienced it in my own store with our Blood Angels contingent of players refusing to even entertain the official lore and writing their own, which, if I may say so myself, was actually better and I enjoyed reading it. GW quietly retconned this to having the Primaris susceptible to the flaws of Sanguinius. But to me, the message was sent from that point. Guilliman is here as the puppet of the corporate, politically correct Games Workshop to solve your grim dark problems to resemble a Saturday morning cartoon, whether you like it or not. I am so sorry, Death Guard players, that your army has had to be sucked up into the vortex that is Guilliman dumbing down the setting. You remember when the Death Guard were actually jolly, but also really, 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 really tragic? That the only real bad guy in Death Guard was Typhus. Remember that? Yeah, that's gone. Saturday morning villains, that's what they are now. Smelly Saturday morning villains who want to destroy the Imperium for some reason. Shrug. They backtracked on this one, as in the Blood Angels, but this is what Guilliman is there for. He is a massive blue reset button ready to come down hard on anything the writers at Games Workshop feel as too dark or too unmarketable. Gabriel Seth said it best in one of the only decent pieces of Astartes lore, in my opinion, from 8th edition, when he referred to the new Primaris they were given as Ultramarines just painted red. I thought this was a direct nod from the writer to the audience that he hears you, that Seth thinks the same way, which is great. But what happens after? By a different writer, Seth comes to respect the new Primaris Marines of Guilliman as Blood Angels and softens his stance on them after almost beating one of them to death. Now, I don't hate the Primaris Marines. I actually think they're really cool models. The setting moving forwards is not a bad thing. Not at all. The Primaris are fantastic models, and I actually like that they are treated as this ace in the hole for the Imperium. That's pretty cool. The problem is that they have no nuance at all. They are literally just Space Marines, but a bit bigger. And probably they're all Ultramarines anyway. When Cole brings up using Traitor Gene Seed to make more Primaris, which would introduce some really awesome grimdark elements back into the setting and to the Imperium, Guilliman says no. Case closed. No grimdark here, please. If the writers at Games Workshop had any sense at all, they will have Cole do it anyway. And with the Sons of the Phoenix, they might be heading in this direction, I hope. But I struggle to believe they will do anything but allude to Cole heading in this direction, rather than stating it outright. Games Workshop shies away from the interesting. It shies away from anything that can rock the boat. Each time two champions meet in 40k lore, you know full well they will both walk away alive through some ridiculous contrivance. We can't have anyone becoming upset and getting their feelings hurt that one of their favourite characters is dead, after all. Sigh. I want this to be a setting for grown-ups. I want 40k lore to resemble being written by an actual human being writer, not someone trying to sell you toy soldiers. But whilst the latter is the case, Guilliman will be seen as the poster boy and head enforcer for this new time of Warhammer 40,000. Never mind the Age of Darkness. This is the age of sales, the age of rising prices, and Rabute Guilliman is its champion. What do you think? I know I ranted on for a little bit longer there than I usually do, but it's something that I thought was actually quite important. What do you think about how things are going in the Warhammer 40,000 lore? Do you agree with me? Or do you think I'm just spouting off nonsense because I'm old and curmudgeonly and I want to go back to the way things were, God damn it, back in the day? But as I've just said, I have no problem with the setting moving forwards as long as it reads like it's being written by an actual competent writer and not somebody who is throwing a load of shit at the wall and seeing what sticks in model sales. What do you guys think? I love you all long time. I'll be back with some more Hobby Nightmares tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you then. Have a good one. See ya.